Did people really fall in love in the Byzantine Empire, a place known for its dazzling gold mosaics and ruthless political betrayals? Did hearts beat faster amidst the grandeur of Constantinople? Or were all unions just about power and alliances? What happened when passion defied the strict rules of emperors, empresses, and the powerful church across 1,000 years of history, from the 4th to the 15th century? Number 7. The Princess and the Pagan King. The year was 988 CE, and in the grand halls of Constantinople, the Byzantine Empire, a tremor of apprehension ran through the imperial court. Emperor Basil II, a man known for his stern demeanor and military prowess, faced a crisis. Not a war with the Bulgarians or the Arabs, but a demand from a distant, fearsome pagan ruler. Vladimir, the Grand Prince of Kievan, Rus, a land of vast forests and fierce warriors to the north, wanted a Byzantine princess. He wanted Anna Porphyrogenita, the emperor's own sister, born in the Purple Chamber, a symbol of unparalleled imperial lineage. For any Byzantine princess, marriage was almost always a political chess move. They were living, breathing treaties, their destinies interwoven with the empire's survival. But Vladimir was different. He was not a Christian. He was a pagan, a worshipper of idols, and his people, the Rus, were infamous for their brutal raids and pagan practices. To marry a Porphyrogenita, a princess born in the Purple Chamber of the Great Palace, to such a man was almost unthinkable. It was a disgrace, a contamination of sacred blood. Yet Basil was cornered. Vladimir, a shrewd and ambitious leader, had taken the Byzantine city of Chersonesus on the Crimean Peninsula. He threatened to march on Constantinople itself if his demand was not met. The empire was fighting on multiple fronts, and it could not afford a full-scale war with the formidable Rus. So a desperate deal was struck. Vladimir would return Chersonesus and convert to Christianity along with his entire people in exchange for Anna's hand. Anna, a woman of refinement and deep piety, must have felt a mix of dread and profound sacrifice. She was leaving the sophisticated world of Constantinople with its libraries, churches, and imperial splendor for a wild, unknown land, and a man whose reputation preceded him. She resisted. She wept. She argued that such a union would be a betrayal of her faith and her heritage, but ultimately duty called. Her brother, the emperor, persuaded her that her marriage was not just a personal sacrifice, but a mission. She would be bringing the light of Orthodox Christianity to an entire nation. She would be an apostle, a saint in the making. So Anna embarked on her journey. She sailed across the Black Sea accompanied by priests, scholars, and artisans. This was not merely a bride traveling to her groom. It was a cultural invasion, a spiritual conquest. When she arrived in Chersonesus, where Vladimir was waiting, a significant event transpired. Vladimir, who had previously been suffering from a mysterious eye ailment, suddenly regained his sight upon being baptized. Whether a miracle or a timely coincidence, it was seen as divine confirmation of his conversion and of Anna's holy mission. The wedding took place in Chersonesus, and it was magnificent, a fusion of Byzantine grandeur and Rus ferocity. Vladimir, now baptized and spiritually renewed, was said to have been awed by Anna's grace and piety. She was not just a political pawn, she was a beacon of the civilization he now sought to embrace. From Chersonesus, Anna and Vladimir journeyed to Kiev, the capital of Rus. This was where the real work began. Anna was no mere figurehead empress. She became an active participant in the Christianization of Rus. She brought with her the architectural knowledge, the liturgical traditions, and the artistic talent of Byzantium. Under her influence, Vladimir began to systematically dismantle pagan idols and build churches. The most famous example was the Desiatinaya Church, or Church of the Tithes, built in Kiev, a magnificent stone structure modeled after Byzantine churches. Anna advised Vladimir on matters of faith and governance, helping him to establish a new legal code based on Christian principles. She taught him about Byzantine art, music, and education. She encouraged the establishment of schools and monasteries. She oversaw the translation of religious texts from Greek into Old Church Slavonic, making Christianity accessible to the common people. Their marriage, initially a reluctant duty for Anna and a strategic move for Vladimir, blossomed into a partnership. Vladimir, once a polygamist with many wives and concubines, became a devoted husband. He valued Anna's wisdom and spiritual guidance. She in turn found purpose in her mission and saw the genuine transformation in her husband and his people. Their union was not just about the love between two individuals, but about the love of a princess for her faith, her duty, and ultimately the love that brought an entire nation into the fold of Christendom. Anna died in 1011, having profoundly shaped the destiny of Rus. Her marriage was a singular event in Byzantine history, an unprecedented concession that yielded immense duty and cultural dividends. The legacy of her union with Vladimir is still visible today in the Orthodox churches of Russia, Ukraine, and Biest. In the Cyrillic alphabet, and in the deep cultural and spiritual ties that bound these lands to Byzantium, it was a love story that started with tears, but ended by changing the map of faith forever. Number 6. The Saxon Empress and the Golden Apple. The year was 972 CE, and the air in Rome was thick with anticipation. Not a battle, not a coronation, but a wedding was about to take place, one that promised to redefine the balance of power in Europe. Otto I, the Holy Roman Emperor, the powerful ruler of the Western lands, had sent his son, Otto II, to marry a Byzantine princess. This was no ordinary bride. This was Theophano, a woman whose lineage was disputed, but whose imperial upbringing in Constantinople was undeniable. The Western Europeans, often perceived as rough-hewn and lacking refinement by the Byzantines, were eager for a connection to the sophisticated culture of Constantinople. The Byzantines, in turn, saw the Western emperors as upstarts, barbarian kings, pretending to be true Roman emperors. So, the marriage was a delicate dance of diplomacy, pride, and strategic alliance. When Theophano arrived, she brought with her more than just a dowry of gold and jewels. She brought the full splendor of Byzantine court life. Her retinue included Greek scholars, architects, artists, and craftsmen. Her arrival was a spectacle. She was adorned in silks and jewels. Her attendants spoke Greek, and her manners were those of the most polished court in the world. For the rough and tumble Saxon court, it was a dazzling, almost overwhelming display. Otto II, a young man of intelligence and ambition, was said to have been captivated by her. Theophano was not merely beautiful, she was highly educated, fluent in Greek and Latin. Sharp-witted and possessed a political acumen owned in the cutthroat environment of the Byzantine Great Palace. She was a woman of formidable presence. Theophano became the Empress of the Holy Roman Empire, a title she wore with a distinct Byzantine flair. She continued to speak Greek, insisted on Byzantine court ceremonies, and introduced Byzantine fashion, art, and intellectual pursuits to the Western court. Imagine a German court suddenly filled with the scent of spices, the rustle of silk, and the sound of Greek hymns. She commissioned illuminated manuscripts, patronized artists who worked in the Byzantine style, and fostered a deep appreciation for Greek learning. But Theophano was more than just a cultural ambassador. She was a powerful political partner to Otto II. She attended imperial councils, participated in diplomatic negotiations, and was seen as a key advisor to her husband. She understood the complexities of international relations and the intricacies of power. When Otto I died and Otto II ascended the throne, Theophano's influence only grew. She became empress consort, and her strong will and sharp mind were evident in imperial decrees and policies. Their love story was not one of youthful infatuation, but of a deep, evolving partnership, built on mutual respect and shared ambition. Otto II, A man who could have been intimidated by such a brilliant and culturally distinct woman instead embraced her wisdom and strength. He clearly adored her, not just as a wife, but as an intellectual equal and a political ally. They had several children, including a son who would later become Emperor Otto III. Tragically, Otto II died young in 983 CE, after just 11 years of marriage. Theophano was devastated, but her personal grief did not overshadow her imperial duties. Their son, Otto III, was only 3 years old. Theophano, with incredible fortitude, stepped forward as regent for her child. She ruled the vast Holy Roman Empire for the next 11 years. A Byzantine woman governing the Frankish and Germanic lands with an iron will and remarkable success, her regency was a testament to her capabilities. She faced rebellions from powerful nobles, navigated complex church politics, and even led military campaigns. She maintained stability and ensured her son's succession. She issued documents using the imperial title Theophano Imperatrix Augusta, emphasizing her own imperial authority, a clear echo of Byzantine empresses. Theophano's legacy was profound. She brought a wave of Byzantine culture and sophistication to the West, influencing everything from imperial ceremonies to artistic styles. She paved the way for the Ottonian Renaissance, a period of renewed cultural and intellectual activity in the Holy Roman Empire. Her reign as regent demonstrated that a woman, especially a Byzantine woman, could govern effectively and command respect in a male-dominated world. When she died in 991 CE, she was buried in Rome, a city she had only visited for her wedding. Far from her native Constantinople, but her mark on Western Europe was indelible. Theophano and Otto II's story is one of a strategic alliance that blossomed into a powerful, loving partnership, proving that even across vast cultural divides, respect, intelligence, and shared purpose could forge a bond strong enough to shape empires. She was truly a golden apple, an exotic and precious fruit planted in foreign soil, yet flourishing magnificently. Number 5. The Last Emperor and His Quiet Strength. The year was 1392 CE, and Constantinople, the glorious capital of the Byzantine Empire, was a shadow of its former self. Besieged repeatedly, its territories shrunk to little more than the city itself, and a few scattered outposts, the empire was dying a slow, agonizing death. Its once invincible walls now seemed fragile, and its vast wealth was long gone. Yet, even in this era of decline, human hearts continued to beat, and love found a way to blossom amidst the despair. This is the story of Helena Dragas and Manuel II Palaiologos, a love forged not in triumph, but in the crucible of shared struggle. Manuel II was an emperor burdened by the weight of a dying empire. He was a scholar, a diplomat, and a man who fought valiantly against overwhelming odds. He traveled tirelessly across Europe, pleading for aid from Western powers, hoping to rally a crusade against the encroaching Ottoman Turks. He knew his efforts might be in vain, but he never gave up. He was a man of quiet dignity and profound faith. Helena Dragas was born a Serbian princess, the daughter of Constantine Dragas, a powerful Serbian magnate. In a time when Byzantine princesses rarely married outside the Orthodox faith, her marriage to Manuel in 1392 was a diplomatic coup, strengthening ties with a neighboring Orthodox power. But it was also a union of two intelligent, devout, and resilient individuals. Their love was not the dramatic, scandalous kind that made headlines in history books. It was a partnership built on shared values, mutual respect, and an unshakable commitment to their family and the empire. They faced incredible hardships together. Manuel spent long periods abroad trying to secure help, leaving Helena to govern Constantinople, often under the very nose of the Ottoman Sultan. Imagine Helena, a woman of grace and intelligence, sitting in the great palace trying to maintain some semblance of imperial grandeur, while the enemy encamped just outside the city walls. She oversaw the care of their many children, managed the dwindling imperial finances, and supported her husband's desperate diplomatic efforts. She was his confidant, his anchor, and his most steadfast ally. One poignant example of their shared struggle was during the prolonged Ottoman siege of Constantinople by Sultan Bayezid I, from 1394 to 1402. For 8 long years, the city was practically blockaded, cut off from the outside world. Manuel was away in Western Europe, seeking aid. It was Helena who stood at the helm, maintaining morale among the beleaguered populace, managing the city's defenses as best she could, and praying for her husband's safe return and the empire's deliverance. The constant threat of attack, the scarcity of resources, the gnawing anxiety, these were the daily realities of their reign. When Manuel returned, having secured little more than vague promises and empty sympathies, Helena was there to greet him, not with recrimination, but with understanding and renewed determination. They shared the bitter truth of their empire's predicament, but also the quiet strength of their bond. They had many children, 6 sons, and at least 1 daughter. Their family life was a rare source of joy and stability in a turbulent world. Helena nurtured her sons, preparing them for the heavy burden of leadership in a dying empire. She instilled in them the same piety and sense of duty that characterized her own life. 3 of their sons would become emperors: John VIII, Constantine XI, and Theodore II. Manuel II, despite the overwhelming odds, was a remarkable emperor. He rebuilt parts of the city, reformed the military, and even engaged in theological debates with Western scholars. Helena was always by his side, whether literally or in spirit, providing moral support and wise counsel. Their reign was not one of expansion or glory, but of perseverance and valiant resistance. It was a reign of quiet, desperate love. When Manuel II died in 1425, Helena was utterly bereft. She had lost not just her husband, but her partner in a lifelong struggle. In her grief, she became a nun, taking the name Hypomone, meaning patience or endurance, a name that perfectly encapsulated her life. She retired to the convent of Martha, where she continued to live a life of piety and devotion. Her son, John VIII Palaiologos, ascended the throne. Helena, now Hypomone, continued to be a guiding presence, offering advice and spiritual support. She lived to see her son John VIII make a desperate journey to Florence, Italy in 1439, seeking union with the Latin Church in a last-ditch effort to gain Western military aid. It was a painful compromise for devout Orthodox Byzantines, but Helena understood the urgency. Helena passed away in 1450, just 3 years before Constantinople finally fell to the Ottomans. She was spared the ultimate agony of witnessing the end of the empire she and her husband had so valiantly tried to save. Her life with Manuel II was a testament to love's resilience in the face of insurmountable odds. Their story teaches us that even in the darkest hours of history, a deep, abiding love and partnership can provide strength, comfort, and a lasting legacy of quiet dignity and unwavering devotion. They were the emperor and empress, who loved not in triumph, but in defiant endurance. Their bond, a flicker of light against the gathering storm. Number 4. The Empress and her stable boy. The Byzantine Empire in the 11th century CE was a place of dazzling wealth, fierce politics, and sudden, dramatic falls from grace. Empress Zoe Porphyrogenita, born in the Purple Chamber, was at the very heart of this tumultuous world. She was not just any empress, she was the last surviving daughter of the Macedonian dynasty, a line that had ruled Byzantium for centuries. Her life was a dizzying succession of political marriages, power struggles, and a passionate, scandalous affair that shook the very foundations of the imperial court. Zoe was born around 978 CE, and by the time she was in her 50s, she was still a formidable yet often unlucky player in the imperial game. She had been married 3 times, each union a desperate attempt to secure the throne or solidify her own power. Her first husband, Romanus III, drowned in his bath suspiciously. Her second, Michael IV, was a commoner, elevated to the throne. Through her influence, a man who she truly seemed to love, at least for a time. Michael IV had been a young, handsome, stable boy from Paphlagonia, serving in the imperial household. Zoe, trapped in a loveless and barren marriage with Romanos III, found herself drawn to Michael's youthful vigor and charm. It was a forbidden attraction, a scandalous affair that played out in the opulent corridors of the great palace. The court chroniclers whispered about their clandestine meetings, the longing glances, the desperation for true affection in a world of cold, political calculation. Their passion eventually led to conspiracy. Romanos III died, and while the official cause was illness, many suspected foul play with Zoe and Michael as the primary culprits. Regardless of the truth, Michael IV was swiftly crowned emperor with Zoe by his side, elevating him from stable boy to sovereign. This was the pinnacle of their love story, a triumph of forbidden passion over imperial convention. For a time, their reign was marked by a fervent, almost desperate love. Zoe lavished attention and gifts upon Michael. He, in turn, elevated his family to positions of power, surrounding himself with his Paphlagonian relatives, much to the chagrin of the established Byzantine aristocracy. But Michael's health was frail, and his body was racked by epilepsy, a condition that worsened significantly after he ascended the throne. As his illness progressed, Michael became increasingly pious, seeking solace in monasteries and spiritual retreat. He grew distant from Zoe, possibly out of guilt, or simply the debilitating nature of his disease. He spent more time cloistered in prayer than attending to imperial duties or to his empress. Zoe, still vibrant and passionate, found herself increasingly isolated and neglected. The fire that had once burned so brightly between them began to flicker and fade. Michael, consumed by his illness and piety, began to prepare for his death. He worried about the succession. He did not want to leave the empire in Zoe's hands alone, nor did he trust his own brothers to rule without guidance. So, in a shocking move, he adopted his nephew, another Michael, and made him his co-emperor, effectively sidelining Zoe. This young man, Michael V, known as the Calker, due to his father's former profession, owed his position entirely to his uncle, not to Zoe. When Michael IV finally succumbed to his illness in 1041 CE, Zoe, despite their recent estrangement, grieved for the man she had loved and helped raise to such a dizzying height. The newly crowned Michael V, eager to assert his own power and free himself from the influence of his benefactor, promptly exiled Zoe to a monastery on the island of Principe. The Byzantine people, however, had a deep-seated reverence for the imperial line, especially for a Porphyrogenita empress. The thought of Zoe, the last true heir of the Macedonian dynasty, being sent to a nunnery by an upstart emperor, sparked outraged riots erupted in Constantinople. Populace demanded Zoe's return, chanting her name, storming the palace. The people loved their empress despite her scandalous past. Michael V, terrified by the popular uprising, quickly brought Zoe back, displaying her publicly on the hippodrome balcony to prove she was alive. And well, but it was too late. The mob had tasted blood. They stormed the great palace, overthrew Michael V, and even blinded him, a common Byzantine punishment for deposed emperors. And so Zoe, now in her 60s, found herself back on the throne, but she did not wish to rule alone. She reigned briefly with her sister Theodora, another formidable Porphyrogenita, before marrying a third time. This time her choice was Constantine IX, Monomachos, a charming but somewhat frivolous nobleman. Their marriage was more a political convenience than a passionate love affair, but Zoe still held considerable power. Zoe's story is a whirlwind of love, betrayal, and remarkable resilience. Passion for Michael IV, a man beneath her station, brought her brief happiness and immense power, but also heartbreak and the eventual erosion of her influence. Her life shows how personal desires could intertwine with imperial destiny, how a single forbidden love affair could plunge an empire into chaos and then miraculously see its protagonist rise from the ashes. She was an empress who dared to love, and in doing so, reshaped the Byzantine throne itself, proving that even in the most rigid of societies, the human heart could still beat to its own wild rhythm. Number 3. The historian, her prince, and the empire. In the opulent halls of the Byzantine Great Palace, in the late 11th century CE, a young woman named Anna Karenina was not just observing history. She was living it, and eventually she would write it. Born in 1083 CE, the firstborn daughter of Emperor Alexios, the first Komnenos, and Empress Irene, Tukaina, Anna was a princess of extraordinary. She was engaged to Constantine Ducas, the son of a former emperor, and for a time it seemed she would be empress. She received an education far beyond that of most women, even princesses. She studied philosophy, rhetoric, history, mathematics, and medicine. Her tutors in Constantinople, and she devoured knowledge with an insatiable appetite. She envisioned herself as a future empress, standing alongside a brilliant emperor. However, fate had other plans. Her younger brother John was born, displacing her from the direct line of succession. Her engagement to Constantine Ducas was broken. This was a crushing blow to Anna's youthful ambitions, but it did not diminish her intellectual prowess or her sharp political mind. Then came the marriage that would define her adult life. In 1097 CE, Anna married Nikephoros Bryennios. Unlike some imperial marriages, which were purely political calculations, this union seems to have been one of genuine respect and intellectual camaraderie. Nikephoros was a distinguished general, a scholar, and a nobleman. He was handsome, intelligent, and shared Anna's love for learning and history. Their relationship was not built on scandalous passion, like some other imperial pairings, but on a deep, intellectual partnership. They spent hours discussing philosophy, strategy, and the turbulent history of their empire. Nikephoros was a chronicler himself, having started a history of his own family and the events of their time. He recognized and admired Anna's brilliance, encouraging her intellectual pursuits. And Nikephoros were both deeply devoted to Emperor Alexios, the first Anna's father. They witnessed firsthand the challenges he faced: the Norman invasions, the Pecheneg incursions, and the arrival of the Western Crusaders. Anna was always fiercely loyal to her father, admiring his political acumen and military genius. She saw him as the savior of the empire, a heroic figure who pulled Byzantium back from the brink. Their shared loyalty to Alexios was a powerful bond. They worked together, advising the emperor, navigating the complex political landscape of the Komnenian court. Nikephoros served with distinction as a general and diplomat, always with Anna's keen eye and astute mind supporting him from the palace. However, Anna's ambition, fueled by her early displacement from the throne, never fully faded. As her father Alexios lay dying, she and her mother, Empress Irene, made a desperate attempt to persuade him to disinherit John and name Nikephoros as his successor. They argued that John lacked the necessary qualities for an emperor, and that Nikephoros, with his military experience and intellectual depth, was the better choice. Alexios, however, remained resolute. He affirmed John as his heir, an act that caused a deep rift between Anna and her brother. When Alexios died in 1118 CE, John II Komnenos ascended the throne, and Nikephoros found themselves in a difficult position. Their loyalty to the former emperor and their open support for Nikephoros as successor put them at odds with the new regime. Some historians even suggest Anna was involved in a conspiracy to overthrow John, though these attempts came to nothing despite the political tension their marriage endured. Nikephoros remained loyal to John II, serving him in various capacities, while Anna channeled her formidable intellect into scholarship. It was after Nikephoros' death in 1137 CE that Anna embarked on her most significant work, the Elechiad. She took up her late husband's historical project, but soon surpassed it, dedicating her life to chronicling the reign of her beloved father, Emperor Alexios I. The Elechiad is a masterpiece of Byzantine historiography, a detailed, often partisan, but incredibly valuable account of a pivotal period in Byzantine history. She wrote it in elegant Greek, demonstrating her profound knowledge of classical literature and rhetorical technique. It is the story of a father seen through the eyes of a brilliant, devoted, and sometimes fiercely biased daughter. In the Elechiad, Anna paints a vivid picture of Alexios' struggles, his triumphs, and the characters who populated his world. She describes Nikephoros Bryennios not just as her husband, but as a skilled general and a virtuous man. Her work is a testament to her love for her family, her empire, and her husband. Anna Karenina retired to a monastery, not as a nun, but as a scholar, dedicating her remaining years to writing and to running a kind of intellectual salon where scholars gathered to discuss philosophy and science. Her relationship with Nikephoros Bryennios was a rare example of an imperial marriage grounded in mutual respect, intellectual companionship, and shared ambition. Their love was not about public displays of affection or dramatic scandals, but about the quiet strength of a partnership that fostered brilliance and ultimately one of the most important history. Number 2. The emperor who defied God and man. In the Byzantine Empire, the emperor was not just a ruler. He was considered God's chosen representative on earth, the living embodiment of divine authority. His actions, especially in matters of marriage and succession, were scrutinized not only by his subjects in the court, but also by the powerful Patriarch of Constantinople, the head of the Orthodox Church. Breaking church law was a grave offense, risking both one's soul and the stability of the empire. This is the story of Emperor Leo VI and Zoe Carbonopsina, a forbidden love that challenged the very foundations of Byzantine society in the early 10th century CE. Leo VI, known as the Wise for his scholarly pursuits and administrative reforms, was a man of intellect and piety. Yet his personal life was a tragic struggle for an heir. He had been married 3 times, each marriage ending in either death or childlessness. According to Orthodox Church law, 3 marriages were permitted, but a 4th was considered bigamy, a grave sin, and absolutely forbidden. For an emperor, it was a scandal waiting to happen. His first wife, Theophano, was a devout and pious woman, beloved by the people, but she died young, leaving no surviving children. His second marriage to Zoe Zatsina, his former mistress, produced a daughter, Anna, but no son. Zoe also died soon after. His third marriage to Eudokia Biana was even more tragic. She died in childbirth, leaving him again without a male heir. The empire needed a male heir. The stability of the dynasty depended on it. Without one, rival factions would likely plunge the empire into civil war. Upon Leo's death, the pressure on the emperor was immense, a heavy crown indeed. It was against this backdrop of desperation and imperial necessity that Leo VI found solace, and eventually profound love, with Zoe Carbonopsina. Her name, Carbonopsina, meant coal-eyed, referring to her striking dark eyes. She was an intelligent, beautiful woman, a former mistress who was fiercely devoted to the emperor, and she became pregnant. This was a miracle, a potential salvation for the dynasty, but it was also a catastrophic scandal. The child, a boy, was born in 905 CE and was named Constantine, but he was illegitimate. To legitimize him and secure the succession, Leo needed to marry Zoe. This would be his fourth marriage, an act that directly defied church law and tradition. The Patriarch of Constantinople, Nicholas Mystikos, was a formidable figure, a man of unyielding principle. He refused to sanction the marriage. He excommunicated Leo from the church and barred him from entering Hagia Sophia, the magnificent imperial cathedral. This was an unprecedented clash of wills between the emperor and the patriarch, a true test of their respective powers. The Byzantine court was in uproar. Some nobles sided with the patriarch, fearing divine retribution and civil unrest. Others, loyal to the emperor and concerned for the succession, urged him to proceed. Leo, despite his piety, was resolute. His love for Zoe and his desire for a legitimate heir outweighed his fear of ecclesiastical censure. In a desperate move, Leo sent emissaries to Rome seeking the Pope's dispensation. Pope Sergius III, more lenient on the matter of imperial marriages than the Eastern Patriarch, granted the dispensation, hoping to assert papal authority over Constantinople. This only further inflamed the Patriarch Nicholas and solidified the Eastern Church's opposition. Despite the ecclesiastical condemnation, Leo VI married Zoe Carbonopsina in a private ceremony in 906 CE. Their son, Constantine, was formally legitimized and crowned co-emperor. This act, driven by a deep love and a fierce paternal instinct, plunged the empire into a bitter theological and political controversy known as the Tetragamy, or Fourth Marriage Dispute. The Patriarch Nicholas Mystikos remained defiant, refusing to acknowledge the marriage or the legitimacy of Constantine. Leo in turn deposed Nicholas and appointed a new patriarch, Euphemius, who was more sympathetic to his cause. The empire was split, torn between loyalty to the emperor and fidelity to Orthodox tradition. Zoe Carbonopsina, though now empress, faced immense opposition. She was seen by many as a scandalous figure, a symbol of imperial transgression. Yet she bore her burdens with quiet dignity, remaining devoted to Leo and their son. Their love was a constant against a backdrop of court intrigue, religious schism, and public condemnation. Leo VI, weakened by the constant struggle and perhaps by the emotional toll of his defiant love, died in 912 CE. Zoe, now Empress Mother, found herself in a precarious position. Her son, Constantine VII Porphyrogenatos, meaning born in the purple, a title given to legitimate imperial children born in the special chamber, was only 7 years old. The power struggle immediately intensified. Zoe eventually became regent for her young son, a role she had to fight for fiercely against her deceased husband's brother Alexander, and later against various military strongmen and palace faction. She proved to be a capable and intelligent ruler, skillfully navigating the treacherous waters of Byzantine politics. She fought wars, made treaties, and defended her son's claim to the throne. Her determination was a testament to her love for her child, and her enduring love for the memory of Leo, the man who had defied so much for her. Their story is a powerful reminder that even in a society steeped in tradition and religious law, love can break through all barriers. Leo VI and Zoe Carbonopsina's forbidden romance was a testament to personal conviction and the desperate need for continuity in an empire constantly teetering on the edge. It was a love that risked excommunication, political upheaval, and societal condemnation, yet ultimately secured a dynasty and for a time brought two defiant hearts together against the world. Number 1. The Empress who rose from the streets. In the sprawling, glittering city of Constantinople, where the streets teemed with merchants and the hippodrome roared with chariot races, a girl named Theodora was born around 500 CE. She was not born into royalty or even into the nobility. Her father was a bearkeeper for the hippodrome, a low-status job. Her early life was spent in the gritty, thrilling world of the theater, where she became an actress, a mime, and according to some scandalous accounts, a courtesan. This was a profession that in the rigid social hierarchy of Byzantium placed her at the very bottom, far removed from the sacred halls of power. Then she met Justinian. Justinian was an aristocrat, a man destined for the imperial throne. He was a nephew of Emperor Justin I, a highly educated and ambitious young man with a vision to restore the Roman Empire to its former glory. He was pious, intelligent, and serious. Theodora, in contrast, was vivacious, quick-witted, and possessed a captivating charm. Their attraction was immediate and undeniable, a lightning bolt across the social divide. Their love story was a scandal waiting to happen. For Justinian to marry Theodora, a woman of her background, was unthinkable. Roman law, which still largely governed Byzantium, explicitly forbade men of senatorial rank from marrying actresses, yet Justinian was deeply, passionately, in love. He pushed for the law to be changed, using all his influence with his uncle the emperor. Against all odds, and against the strong opposition of the Empress Euphemia, the law was altered. Justinian married Theodora. This was not a reluctant political alliance, but a union born of deep affection and mutual respect. Theodora was no mere trophy. She was sharp, intelligent, and possessed an extraordinary force of will. Justinian recognized her unique talents and valued her counsel above all others. He saw in her not just a lover, but an equal partner, a powerful intellect, and an unwavering ally. When Justin I died in 527 CE, Justinian ascended the throne, and Theodora, the former actress and courtesan, became Empress Augusta. Her coronation was a moment of unprecedented social upheaval and a testament to the power of their love. She was no longer just the emperor's wife. She was a co-ruler, an empress who would wield immense power and influence. Their reign was tumultuous. The Nika riots of 532 CE tested their resolve like nothing before. During a chariot race in the Hippodrome, the two main factions, the Blues and the Greens, erupted into full-blown rebellion, turning their rage against Justinian himself. The riots escalated, engulfing Constantinople in fire and chaos. Half the city lay in ruins. Justinian, despairing, was ready to flee, but Theodora stood firm. In one of the most famous speeches in Byzantine history, she defied her husband's advisors, who urged flight. She declared, "Royalty is a good burial shroud." She preferred shame Justinian and his generals into action. They rallied the loyal troops, led by the brilliant general Belisarius, and brutally crushed the rebellion, saving the empire and their throne. Theodora's steadfastness that day cemented her place in history as a formidable and indispensable empress. From that moment on, Theodora was not just Justinian's empress, but his full partner in ruling the vast Byzantine Empire. She participated in imperial councils, advised on legal matters, and issued decrees in her own name. She had her own court, her own palace, and her own retinue of officials. She corresponded with foreign dignitaries and received ambassadors. Theodora was a fierce advocate for social justice, particularly for women. She championed laws protecting women from forced prostitution, establishing convents and shelters for former actresses and others. She made it easier for women to divorce abusive husbands and protected women's property rights. She understood the plight of the vulnerable, having experienced it herself. Their partnership was one of profound intellectual and emotional depth. Justinian relied on her completely. Chroniclers, even those critical of her past, spoke of their unbreakable bond. Procopius, who later wrote a scandalous secret history alleging all sorts of depravities about the imperial couple, still acknowledged Theodora's extraordinary political acumen and her unparalleled influence over Justinian. Whether it was in legal reforms, military strategy, or religious policy, Theodora's hand was always present. Together, they embarked on ambitious projects, the codification of Roman law into the Corpus Juris Civilis, which still forms the basis of many legal systems today, the reconquest of lost Roman territories, the magnificent cathedral that remains a marvel of architecture even now. These achievements were the fruit of their shared vision and unwavering collaboration. Theodora died in 548 CE, after more than 20 years as empress. Justinian was utterly heartbroken, continued to rule for another 17 years, but the fire and energy that had characterized his earlier reign seemed to diminish. He honored her memory, continuing many of her social reforms, and even using her name in later imperial decrees. Theodora and Justinian's story is the ultimate Byzantine power couple saga. It is a tale of forbidden love that defied social convention, a love that was forged in the crucible of public scrutiny and imperial crisis. From the dirt of the Hippodrome to the glittering throne of Constantinople, Theodora rose by the side of a man who loved her fiercely, recognized her genius, and trusted her implicitly. Their partnership reshaped an empire and left an enduring legacy of law, architecture, and a love that truly conquered all.